I always thought betrayal would come with warning signs, distant eyes, whispered calls, sudden absences. But real betrayal doesn't knock. It waits until you feel safe. And then it rips your world apart. That Friday, I came home early. A canceled meeting. A quiet gift from the universe, I thought. The house was too quiet at first. Then I heard it. Laughter upstairs. Familiar voices. One male, one female. His voice, and hers. I didn't want to believe it. I climbed the stairs slowly, heart pounding, palms sweating. The bedroom door was slightly open, and then Jasmine walked out. Wearing my silk robe, she froze when she saw me. Behind her, Ryan emerged, shirtless, casual, like he'd just stepped out of the shower of someone else's life. "Elena," he said, with that voice he used when trying to sound calm. But it was Jasmine who spoke first. Her lips trembled, but not from guilt. "We didn't mean for it to happen, but we're in love." My throat dried. I opened my mouth, but no sound came out. And in that moment, the ring on my finger felt like a lie. I took it off. It slipped from my fingers. It hit the hardwood floor with a cold metallic click, like a gun cocking back. They didn't say sorry. They didn't even flinch. I drove to my parents' house. I was shaking, still in disbelief. Surely they would take my side. Surely they would see this for what it was, a betrayal of blood, of vows, of trust. My mother, Diane, opened the door with a warm smile that vanished when she saw my face. I caught them, I whispered. Jasmine. And Ryan. She closed the door slowly behind me, leading me into the kitchen. My father, Walter, sat at the table, silent, unreadable. The man never did say much, but it was my mother who shattered me more than any affair ever could. "Elena," she sighed, "you've always had everything. Jasmine deserves to be happy too." I blinked. Everything? All we ever did was take care of her. "She was the fragile one," she said. "You were always the strong one." I looked at Walter. He looked down. No words, no defense, just silence. The divorce came quickly. Ryan wanted the house. Jasmine wanted the furniture, my grandmother's mirror, my wedding china. My parents encouraged me to move on gracefully. My lawyer looked at me with pity. No children, no claim, just my broken name, my broken vows, and an empty apartment. Sign the papers in silence. No one from my family came. A week later, Jasmine and Ryan moved into my house, the one I had designed, the one I had paid for. They didn't just take my husband, they took my home. They took my place in the family. And no one, not even my own blood, stood up for me, but they should have known one thing. The woman they erased wasn't finished yet. I used to believe that strength meant enduring, keeping your head down, smiling through betrayal. But what no one tells you is, strength without boundaries is just self-destruction. The first few weeks after the divorce blurred together like water running down a cracked window. I didn't cry. I couldn't. I was too hollow. I lived in a one-bedroom apartment with a leaking faucet, flickering lights, and walls that echoed with silence. No furniture. Just a mattress on the floor and a folding chair someone left on the curb. My dinner most nights? A can of soup? Cold. I couldn't even bring myself to heat it. But the hunger that gnawed at me wasn't from food. It was from everything they took. And then came the flashbacks. Not gentle memories. Not nostalgia. Receipts. I saw myself at 24, holding down 2 jobs so Ryan could get his MBA. I remember the nights I massaged his shoulders while he studied, whispering, "You're going to build something great. I believe in you." I remembered Jasmine's overdose. How I stayed up 3 days straight while she went through withdrawal. How I paid for the therapy Mom said was too expensive. How I held her hand while she shook in mine, while they slept peacefully. I worked, while they laughed at brunch. I was counting coupons. I gave them everything. And when I was empty, they walked away, laughing. One night, I couldn't sleep. The apartment was too quiet, the city outside too loud. I rummaged through an old box I hadn't touched since moving in. Inside, books, loose receipts, unopened mail, and at the bottom, a worn spiral notebook with a red elastic band. I opened it. My handwriting filled the pages, messy, passionate, full of hope. It was my dream business plan. Years ago, before marriage, before Jasmine's crisis, before Ryan's tuition, it was my vision, my escape plan, my legacy, forgotten. Under the weight of everyone else's dreams, I traced the words with my fingers. Online consulting, branding strategies, women-owned startups, vision, freedom, purpose, impact. I laughed, a small, cracked sound. Who was that girl? Then I looked in the mirror. Pale skin, sunken eyes, but something had returned. A flicker. I didn't recognize myself, I whispered. But this book did. I plugged in my ancient laptop. The screen flickered, but it came to life. Just like I was about to. I opened a blank spreadsheet, typed the first column, laid the foundation, not for a business, for myself. They erased me from their world. But now I had a chance to rebuild my own, and this time, I wouldn't. Hand it away. Some women scream to be heard, some cry until someone cares. But me? I learned how to disappear and build in silence. While they toasted their engagement over champagne, I was drinking instant coffee in the corner of a co-working space, eyes burning from late-night research. They thought I had vanished. They thought I'd broken. But in the silence, I was reborn. Under the name E. Carson Consulting, I registered a business no one recognized, but everyone would soon need. I specialized in branding recovery for women-owned startups, something I knew all too well. How to rise from ruin. By the end of the first year, I had 4 clients. By the second, I had 40. And by the third, I was consulting for the very kind of investors Ryan once begged for meetings with. Now they were calling me. I wore power differently now. No flashy rings, no designer handbags, just confidence, clarity, control. And then, one night, as the rain tapped gently on my apartment window, I did something I had waited years to do. I reached into the back of my closet and pulled out a shoebox. Inside, a wedding photo, a torn letter from Jasmine, the silk robe she wore the day I found them together. I lit a single match. The flames danced slowly, devouring the past. I died in their story, I whispered, but I rewrote the ending. Then, I blocked them all. Every number, every social media profile, every ghost of who I used to be. There would be no more begging for love, no more crumbs of validation. I wasn't just free, I was untouchable. Months passed, success became normal, silence became peace. But fate wasn't done with me yet. One morning, I received an alert. Carson Hill, the family estate, was listed for private auction. Turns out Walter, my ever-silent father, had racked up more debt than pride could cover. Taxes unpaid, loans defaulted. The home they'd all chosen over me was now up for grabs. I didn't even hesitate. Through a shell company, I placed the highest bid. The paperwork arrived a week later. I opened the manila envelope, and there it was, Carson Hill. Property of E. Carson LLC. I ran my fingers over the gold-lettered keychain. They were still living in the illusion of control. And now, they were about to rent the stage for their downfall. From me. Then came the email. It was from an address I didn't recognize, lharperoutlook.com, but the subject line stopped me cold. You need to hear this. Attached was an audio file, a voice recording, and a note. Check the paternity. She's lying again. I clicked play. Ryan and Jasmine, laughing, talking, plotting. She probably still thinks we care. Let her rot in her little apartment. You think she'll show up at the wedding? God, I hope not. She'll ruin the aesthetic. Then a final voice entered the scene. Did you get it? A woman. She sounded familiar. I typed quickly. Lena Harper. My cousin. We hadn't spoken in years, not since my mother called her a stain on the Carson name and cut her off. I had defended her once. Lena had been like a sister, before Jasmine decided there could only be one. I emailed her back. The reply came instantly. You stood by me when no one else did. Now it's my turn. Jasmine is lying to him. About about everything? I have proof. You deserve to know. I've been waiting to return the favor. We met in a downtown cafe the next day. No cameras, no drama. Just two women who had been exiled and had survived. Together we began gathering everything. Receipts, records, copies of the audio, DNA test kits. Not for revenge, for truth, for justice, for the woman they tried to erase. Some battles are loud, explosive, violent, but the ones that leave the deepest scars are the ones where the enemy never even sees the knife until they're already bleeding. It was a Tuesday morning when the news broke. A smiling photo of Jasmine, Carson and Ryan Blake, hand in hand, on the front of a wedding blog I never subscribed to. The headline, Carson family legacy to host elegant spring wedding for heiress daughter. And the venue? Carson Hill, my childhood home, my family's estate, the one they lost, the one I now owned. I stared at the screen, my coffee untouched beside me. My lips didn't curl into a smile. Not yet, but something colder, sharper, settled into my chest. I called my lawyer. Let them rent it, I said. Let them believe they're still the center of this world. They'll pay me to humiliate themselves. The invitation arrived a week later. A mistake, I'm sure. A cruel joke, or an act of arrogance. You are cordially invited. To the wedding of the man who betrayed me and the sister who replaced me. I RSVP'd with one word. Attending. The day came with blue skies and floral arrangements that tried too hard to be perfect. I arrived late enough to be noticed. Early. Enough to control the narrative. A red dress, not flashy. No, it was calculated. Deep crimson, like wine aged in secrets. Hair swept up, a soft smile, diamond studs, quiet, but undeniable. I stepped out of the black car slowly, and the whispers began immediately. Is that Elena? She looks different. Didn't she disappear? I walked past them all, guests in ivory and blush, as if they weren't even there. Past my mother, Diane, who froze mid-sip of champagne. Past my father, who looked down again, just like he always had. And finally, past Jasmine, already, pale beneath her makeup. She clutched her bouquet tighter, eyes darting between me and Ryan, but I didn't look at either of them. Not yet. I took my seat in the front row, right side, where the bride's family should be, where I should have sat years ago. And then I waited. The ceremony began. A soft string quartet, whispered prayers, nervous laughter. Ryan stood at the altar in a navy tuxedo, glancing toward the back every few seconds, searching for me. Good. Let the fear build slowly. Jasmine walked down the aisle. Fake tears, practiced grace. The crowd turned to admire her, but their glances kept returning. To me. She reached the altar, took his hands. The officiant began the vows. I listened. I counted the lies in every sentence. Do you, Ryan Blake, take Jasmine Carson? I stood. Silence fell. Every eye snapped to me. The officiant stopped mid-sentence. I stepped forward slowly. No rush. This was my moment. I'd earned it. Before you kiss the bride. There's one detail everyone here deserves to know. I looked at Ryan first, then Jasmine, then out at the crowd, a sea of painted smiles now cracked with tension. This venue, this estate, Carson Hill, I pulled a key from my clutch and held it up. Belongs to me. Gasps rippled like thunder. The officiant took a step. Back. Jasmine's bouquet trembled in her hands. Ryan looked like someone had knocked the air out of him. You're standing on my property, I said. You're about to pledge your forever love, Inside the house you stole from me, and every minute of this fairy tale, you paid for it, with my money, my land, my silence. Someone in the back coughed. A camera clicked. Murmurs began again. Jasmine's voice cracked. You can't be serious. I turned to the guests, offering the calmest smile I'd worn in years. Enjoy the cake. The drinks are on me. Then I sat down and let the weight of truth do what revenge never could. Crack. Their perfect little world in half. There's a moment, just before everything breaks, when the silence feels louder than the storm. And in that moment, the people who once thought they were untouchable finally realize who was holding the power all along. The guests hadn't. Recovered from the venue reveal. Jasmine's hands were shaking. Ryan's jaw was tight. But they tried to move forward like nothing had happened. Desperate smiles. Nervous laughs. I stayed seated. Silent, composed, but not finished. When the officiant hesitated again, Ryan cleared his throat. Can we just move on? I rose to my feet once more. Oh no, Ryan, we haven't even started. I pulled a small, sealed envelope from my clutch. White. Simple. Clean. But it held the ugliest truth of all. I walked toward them. Slowly, deliberately, heels clicking on marble tile. I handed it to him. Open it. He frowned, tearing it open. In front of everyone. His eyes scanned the paper, and then widened. What the hell is this? A paternity test, I said. You know, for the baby Jasmine's been using to keep you in line. The crowd gasped. Jasmine's face drained of all color. Elena, stop. It's not his Jasmine. And you know it. Ryan's hands trembled now. You told me, she lied, like she always has. Someone in the back of the room actually dropped their champagne flute, and still, I wasn't done. From the side of the room, a speaker popped softly, then crackled to life. It was Lena. She stood by the sound system, one hand holding her phone, the other gripping the cable. Play it, I said. Lena gave me a nod. And then the audio began, Jasmine's voice clear as day. She was so pathetic, crying after the divorce. I almost felt bad. But then I remembered she brought it on herself. Ryan's laughter followed. She'll never recover. She was always just average. We're the real power couple now. More laughter, more cruelty. Every word sliced through. The room like a blade. The guests turned toward the couple in stunned silence. One woman shook her head. A man in a suit whispered, "Isn't he launching a business this quarter?" I stepped forward again. Let's be honest, I said, my voice low but steady. You didn't just betray me. You humiliated me, mocked me, lied about me, and now you get to do it publicly. With background music. Climax. Ryan ripped off his boutonniere and threw it to the ground. This is a setup. You planned this whole thing. I looked him in the eyes, not angry, not bitter, just done. No. Ryan, you planned it. I just cleaned up the mess. That's when the unraveling began. One by one, the guests began standing. Some stormed out. Others whispered harshly to Jasmine's parents. One investor, I recognized him from a Forbes article, approached Ryan, shook his head, and said, "We'll be pulling the deal. This isn't the kind of press we invest in." Diane tried to stop him, stepping forward like a woman grasping at a dream. Wait. Please, she's exaggerating. But it was Walter, the man who had never said a word when I was discarded, who finally spoke. His voice was heavy, quiet, but it landed like thunder. What have you done, Jasmine? Jasmine turned toward him in disbelief. Daddy? But Walter simply walked away. Public reversal, number 2. The crowd had turned. Not on me. On them. Security approached from the hallway. I'd arranged it in advance, not to remove anyone, just in case things got chaotic. I nodded to the head of staff. Kindly assist the couple in exiting the premises. They're no longer welcome. Ryan tried to argue, but no one was listening anymore. Not even Jasmine, who looked like she was on the edge of fainting. As they were escorted out, dazed, disgraced, discarded, I turned one last time, not to speak, just to watch. Watch as the house they once called theirs became a stage for their downfall. Watch as the guests who once whispered about my shame now whispered about theirs. And then, I walked out. Not rushed, not angry, not triumphant, just free. Because revenge was never the goal. Truth was. The morning after the wedding wasn't loud, no reporters, no headlines, just the quiet hum of a city that didn't know it had witnessed a reckoning. I sat on the rooftop of my penthouse, the one they said I'd never afford. The air was still. The coffee warm in my hands. Sunlight crept slowly across the skyline, like a soft promise. Around me, everything was mine. The plants in the rooftop garden, the silence, the peace. I didn't need applause, or revenge, or for anyone to say, "You were right," because I knew I had survived the fire and built a home from the ashes. They thought they broke me, I whispered, but I was never the fragile one. I was the foundation, and now I don't build for their approval, or their comfort, or their expectations. Now, I build only for me. I took a sip. The wind moved gently through my hair, and for the first time in years, I smiled. Not because I won, but because I finally understood. I never needed them to begin with.